Last night's episode of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert went completely off the rails, as a routine guest appearance by Elon Musk devolved into a heated ideological battle on live television. What began as light banter spiraled into a searing confrontation when Colbert launched a wildly personal attack against Musk, accusing the tech mogul of harboring transphobic and racist beliefs. In a moment that left the audience stunned, Musk clapped back with a blistering critique of what he dubbed the woke mind virus, and what followed has already been labeled the most controversial talk show moment of the decade. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button for more explosive stories like this. The air in the Ed Sullivan Theater was unusually electric as the camera panned to Elon Musk, who sat across from Stephen Colbert, legs crossed, expression neutral, promoting the newest developments from SpaceX and a recently announced AI initiative. Musk had been composed, focused, and sharp. But the tone shifted almost imperceptibly as Colbert began probing, not into innovation, not even politics, but Musk's personal life. "So Elon," Colbert started with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes, "you've been getting a lot of attention lately. Not just for your satellites, but for your, let's call it, questionable parenting choices." He chuckled, waiting for a laugh that never really came. Musk tilted his head slightly, raising an eyebrow. "Not sure what you mean, Stephen," he said calmly. Colbert leaned forward, hands folded. "I mean your daughter, who's made it clear she wants nothing to do with you. She's transitioning from Xavier to Vivian. And yet, according to reports, you've completely refused to support her identity. Many would call that transphobic. Some would even argue it's part of a deeper pattern with you. Something darker." The audience went dead silent. Musk didn't flinch. Colbert pressed on, emboldened. "Some are asking, is your refusal to respect your child's identity not just about gender, but rooted in the same archaic ideology that's made your companies hostile workplaces for women and people of color? Is the real Elon Musk just another billionaire clinging to outdated racist worldviews while hiding behind innovation?" The shot lingered on Musk's face. He blinked once. "Are you seriously accusing me of being a racist transphobe on national television?" he asked, voice low, measured. "If the shoe fits," Colbert replied, a hint of smugness returning. Musk exhaled through his nose, folding his hands on his lap. "Let's set the record straight, Stephen. My child, my former child, cut off contact with me not because I refused to accept her transition, but because she was influenced by an ideological cult masquerading as progressivism. The same cult that's infesting institutions, media, and evidently late-night talk shows." The crowd reacted with scattered gasps and murmurs. Colbert leaned back, eyes narrowing, but Musk wasn't finished. "It's not about gender. It's about reality. It's about a culture that punishes dissent, weaponizes empathy, and bulldozes nuance for the sake of performative outrage. My child didn't reject me because I failed as a father. She rejected me because she was taught that I'm the enemy for even asking questions." Colbert's jaw visibly clenched, but he forced a smile. "You don't think refusing to call your daughter by her chosen name is asking questions? That's denial. That's rejection." Musk's eyes were ice. "And you don't think calling a parent a bigot for grieving the loss of the son he raised for 18 years is cruelty?" There was a pause. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Colbert looked around as if waiting for the audience to break the tension. Then he leaned in again, voice suddenly harder. "Let me get this straight. You're not denying that you've dismissed your daughter's transition. You're just blaming woke ideology for her choices. Isn't that exactly the rhetoric used by, well, far-right conspiracy theorists?" Musk's expression darkened. "No, Stephen. That's the rhetoric of someone who's watched people lose their minds over slogans and hashtags, who's seen intelligent discourse drowned under the pressure of mob-enforced dogma, who's witnessed entire careers destroyed because someone dared to speak the truth. Colbert's smile had vanished completely now. Musk continued, voice rising slightly. What you're doing right now, this public shaming disguised as concern, is exactly why I've been speaking out. It's not about hate. It's about the death of reason. You're not asking questions, you're accusing. And you're doing it with the smug confidence of someone who knows Twitter will back you up. A long silence hung in the studio. Colbert adjusted his suit jacket, then tapped, his pen against the desk. So, he said, just to clarify for the audience, you're saying that respecting your child's identity is less important than challenging woke culture? Musk shook his head slowly. No, I'm saying we have to choose honesty over comfort, and sometimes that means admitting that not every narrative is sacred. Another silence. Colbert cleared his throat, clearly preparing another retort. But the momentum had shifted. The audience sensed it. The cameras didn't cut. Musk leaned back in his chair, still calm, but his gaze was sharp now. No longer defensive, but offensive. Waiting. Colbert's next words caught in his throat, but he recovered. Well, we'll be right back after the break, Musk interrupted, voice slicing through the outro music. Of course we will. Wouldn't want to end the segment before you get to make a TikTok out of it. The screen faded to black as the band struggled to fill the awkward silence. And that's when the real fireworks began. As the show cut to commercial, the studio was anything but quiet. What had been a controlled confrontation had now devolved into palpable chaos backstage. The audience murmured among themselves, unsure of what they were witnessing. Was it all scripted? Was this a stunt? But one look at Colbert, who had already pulled off his earpiece and was speaking tersely to a producer, and Musk, who sat unmoving with arms crossed and jaw clenched, told everyone this was no act. When the cameras came back on, the mood was unmistakably tense. The lights were the same, the set unchanged, but the two men now sat in an icy standoff. Gone was the usual charm offensive. This wasn't late night. This was a live grenade with the pin halfway out. Colbert didn't waste time. Welcome back, he said flatly. We're still here with Elon Musk, who just before the break claimed that respecting his child's identity was somehow dangerous to society. He turned toward Musk with visible irritation. I want to be clear here. You're not just defending your personal choices. You're launching a broader attack on what you call woke culture. Musk didn't blink. Because it is an attack, Stephen. Woke culture isn't about inclusion. It's about coercion. It demands total ideological submission. It doesn't tolerate discussion, only obedience. Colbert scoffed. You sound like a Reddit thread. You realize that, right? Better than sounding like a smug propagandist with a laugh track, Musk snapped. The audience gasped audibly. A few laughed nervously. Others exchanged stunned looks. This wasn't satire anymore. This was raw. Colbert straightened in his chair, clearly rattled. Propagandist? I ask you about your own daughter's transition, and that makes me a propagandist? You didn't ask, Stephen, Musk said, leaning forward now, his voice as cold as it was calm. You accused. You framed me as a villain for not parroting an ideology. You don't care about my daughter. You care about scoring points. That struck a nerve. Colbert's face hardened. You're damn right I care, he said, voice rising. I care when people with your platform use it to normalize intolerance. You say you're just asking questions, but people hear you and use those questions to justify hate. Musk held up a finger. And that's the trick, isn't it? That's how the virus spreads. You brand every disagreement as hate, every question as violence, every doubt as a moral failing. That's not progress, Stephen. That's ideological fascism dressed up in rainbow flags and buzzwords. Colbert turned to the audience as if seeking support. Ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk, the man who thinks empathy is fascism. No, Musk said, voice rising now. I think forced empathy is a mask for tyranny. I think when you tell a father he must erase his memories, his language, his truth, or be labeled a bigot, that is tyranny. I loved my son. I grieved when I lost him. But I will not be forced to call grief a hate crime. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Silence. Even Colbert didn't speak for several seconds. Then, trying to regain footing, he forced a smile. Look, Elon, I get it. You're hurt. But you're not just a father. You're a public figure. Words matter. Influence matters. When you speak, people listen. Exactly, Musk snapped. And that's why I must speak. Because we are sleepwalking into a society where the truth is optional and the mob writes the rules. You don't want a conversation. You want compliance. But I won't comply. Colbert's smile vanished. You're saying society should stop listening to trans people in the name of truth? That's absurd. No, Musk said, his voice now eerily calm again. I'm saying society should stop treating disagreement as evil. Stop conflating identity with infallibility. My daughter deserves love. She deserves compassion. But she is not immune to ideology. And neither is this audience. A chill passed through the room. Musk looked out across the stunned crowd. You want to know why I speak out against woke culture? Because it convinces young people, brilliant, sensitive young people, that their confusion is a permanent identity, that their suffering is sacred and unquestionable, that their parents are enemies if they hesitate to kneel. It doesn't empower them. It isolates them. It radicalizes them. He turned back to Colbert. And it turns decent people into cowards who fear being labeled more than they fear being wrong. Colbert's fingers tapped rhythmically against his desk. He was clearly trying to keep composure, but the heat behind his eyes was unmistakable. You think you're the only one hurting here? He said. You think parents of trans kids aren't terrified? You think people don't lie awake at night, afraid for their children's safety, afraid of what people like you are enabling? Musk nodded solemnly. I think parents should be afraid, but not of people like me. They should be afraid of a world where love is redefined as blind affirmation, where biology is bigotry, where asking your child why makes you a villain. That's not safety, Stephen. That's indoctrination. Colbert's voice was tight now. So you're saying you know better than your daughter? That you, with all your companies and money and power, know better than someone just trying to be who she is? I'm saying I'm her father, Musk said, leaning in. And that means I don't have the luxury of playing along with lies because they're popular. It means I have to speak the truth, even if it makes talk show hosts uncomfortable. The tension in the studio was suffocating. You could feel it in the way the cameras hesitated before cutting, the way the band stayed silent, the way the audience held its breath. Colbert finally sat back, crossing his arms. Maybe we should have just stuck to talking about Mars. Musk smirked. Mars doesn't cancel people for pronouns. The line hit like a slap. A few audience members burst into awkward, shocked laughter. Others didn't know whether to clap or cringe. Colbert didn't even smile. He turned toward the producer off camera and muttered something. A few crew members moved near the stage. Musk noticed them, and for the first time, a flicker of recognition passed across his face. He was being set up, but he didn't flinch. Colbert straightened, then said, on live television, Elon, I think we've given you more than enough time to spread your truths. I think we're done here. Musk turned slowly toward the camera. Of course we are. You were never interested in truth. The tension didn't just break. It snapped like a bone. Colbert's voice cut through it one last time. Security, please escort Mr. Musk out. And that's when the studio truly fell apart. At Colbert's signal, two security guards emerged from the wings, moving with the calm, deliberate steps of professionals trained to handle belligerent guests. But there was no belligerence in Elon Musk's posture. He didn't rise. He didn't yell. He sat still in his chair, arms crossed, watching the guards approach, with a gaze so steady it made the entire moment feel surreal. The audience, now fully aware this wasn't a sketch or a stunt, shifted in their seats. A few gasped, others whispered. Someone near the front audibly muttered, "This is insane." Colbert tried to maintain control, tried to keep the show moving forward, but the tone had veered irreparably off course. His cue cards were ignored. The band, unsure of whether to vamp or stay silent, sat motionless. The show wasn't just going off script, it was breaking live. "Elon, this is for the best," Colbert said, avoiding eye contact. His voice trembled, slightly, not with fear but frustration. "You've made your views clear." Musk finally stood, smooth and composed, adjusting the lapels of his blazer as if brushing off the moment itself. "Clearer than you expected, I think." The guards flanked him, waiting for movement. Musk didn't acknowledge them. He turned to the audience, then to the camera. "Let's be honest with each other for once." The crowd was silent. "This is what happens," he said, addressing not just the people in the room, but the millions he knew would be watching online within hours. "This is what happens when a society becomes so addicted to outrage that conversation is treated as violence, and disagreement as heresy. You don't need pitchforks anymore. You've got hashtags." He took a step toward center stage, ignoring, the guards still following close behind. "I didn't come here to offend. I came here to talk. You brought me on your show, Stephen, not just to interview me, but to corner me, to make me a villain so you could have your moment of moral victory in front of your audience." Colbert, flustered, tried to interject. "You were given every chance to—" "I was given a stage," Musk cut in, "and a target painted on my back." The audience stirred again, but this time it wasn't all gasps. Some clapped, others shifted uncomfortably. The dividing line in the room was now unmistakable. Musk looked straight at Colbert. "You don't want people to think, you want them to perform. You parade identity like a shield, and when someone challenges your narrative, even respectfully, you smear them as dangerous." Colbert finally stood, face flushed. "You insulted your own daughter on live TV. You made yourself the villain." Musk's voice was suddenly, devastatingly quiet. "No, Stephen, I refuse to lie. And in 2025, that's the real crime." The silence that followed was deafening. One of the security guards shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't sure if he was escorting a guest or interrupting a cultural moment that would be dissected for years to come. Then Musk turned to leave. But before he reached the edge of the set, he stopped. One last look to the camera. To every parent out there, wondering if they're a monster for questioning what their child has been told by the internet, by institutions, by late-night hosts who know nothing of their lives, trust your love. Trust your judgment. You're not alone. And with that, he walked off. The audience erupted, not in a single unified reaction, but a collision of cheers, boos, applause, and jeers. The chaos of a fractured culture played out in real time. The camera desperately tried to cut to Colbert, who stood motionless behind his desk, gripping its edges so tightly his knuckles had turned white. His producers gestured wildly from offstage. Time to pivot. Time to cut to commercial. But he didn't speak. When the camera finally snapped to a wide shot and the house lights came up, the show cut to black. Not with a punchline, not with the usual jazz outro, but in the middle of a stunned room that didn't know whether they'd just watched a debate or a detonation. Backstage, Musk passed the dressing rooms without looking back. The same crew members who'd prepped him with notes and makeup earlier in the evening now avoided eye contact. His phone buzzed, texts, mentions, alerts already pouring in like a dam had burst. He didn't check them. He paused near the back door, where a driver waited to escort him back to the hotel. "Mr. Musk," a voice said. It was a young crew member, maybe an intern. Nervous, early 20s. That was something? Musk looked at him. Was it? The intern nodded. I don't know if I agreed with everything, but you didn't lie. Musk nodded once, got into the car, and left. Within an hour, the clip was everywhere. On Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, hashtags trended globally. Colbert meltdown, Musk vs woke, talk show war. Split-screen edits exploded onto the internet, half the country calling Elon a fascist, the other half calling him a truth-teller. Memes, think pieces, angry threads from activists, praise from free speech advocates. By morning, every angle had been litigated 10 times over. Colbert released a statement. The Late Show supports open dialogue, but hateful rhetoric has no place on our stage. Musk's camp released nothing. No comment, no tweet, just silence. It said more than any rebuttal ever could. By the end of the week, Colbert's ratings spiked, but the tone of his show had changed. His monologues were sharper, more defensive. He referenced the Musk confrontation only indirectly. Jokes wrapped in armor. But the air was different now. The veneer had cracked. For Musk, the confrontation had become a new front in a larger war, one he had no intention of backing away from. His next interview was booked within days, this time on a podcast, unedited, uncensored. He knew what the media would do, and he didn't care, because something had shifted. In a moment where he was supposed to be humiliated, something else happened. The crowd didn't just react, they reflected, they questioned. And in a culture addicted to certainty, that alone was an act of rebellion. The showdown between Stephen Colbert and Elon Musk wasn't just a late-night implosion. It was the night the stage stopped being safe. The night a guest refused to play the part of the villain and instead walked off with half the country listening. And for better or worse, it was the night late-night comedy became a battlefield.